What I'm about to share comes from a place deep within my heart, a question I posed to God in the stillness of an early morning that has since changed everything I thought I knew about love, life, and eternity. It was a simple question, yet it felt monumental. What happens to love after we die? That question haunted me, because love is the most precious and mysterious part of our existence. It shapes us, defines us, and connects us in ways words often fail to capture. But what becomes of it when the body ceases to breathe, when the eyes close for the last time? Does love simply vanish like a fading memory, or does it endure in a way we cannot yet comprehend? This question had been quietly growing inside me, but a recent experience with someone I loved brought it to the forefront with a force I could no longer ignore. Just weeks ago, I sat beside my dear friend's mother as she took her final breaths. The room was heavy with a mixture of sorrow and peace, and I watched the love in her family's eyes, so raw and tender, trying to hold on to something that felt like it was slipping away. As her spirit seemed to drift beyond the veil, I wrestled with the idea that the love so palpable in that room might somehow dissolve along with her presence. The thought was unbearable. I have spent much of my life telling stories that seek to illuminate the mysteries of faith, grace, and the divine. My work has always been a bridge between earthly experience and heavenly truth. Yet, despite this, I found myself struggling to portray the eternal nature of love because I lacked clarity on what truly happens to love after death. How could I authentically convey the hope and assurance of love's perpetuity if I didn't know it myself? This tension haunted me in quiet moments, especially when I would hear from viewers and friends who shared their own fears and uncertainties about love's fate beyond this life. In the quiet hours before dawn, restless and overwhelmed by these thoughts, I found myself reaching out in prayer. I poured out my heart, laying bare my doubts and longing for understanding. God, I whispered into the darkness, please show me the truth. What becomes of love when we leave this world? Is it lost? Does it endure? I need to know for myself and for all who are hurting. That prayer was not a polished request, but a raw, desperate plea, a yearning for revelation that transcended human knowledge. As I waited in that stillness, I felt a profound sense of presence, a gentle assurance that my question was heard. It was as if the very essence of love was about to be unveiled to me in a way that would surpass anything I could imagine. I realized then that this question wasn't mine alone. It belongs to every person who has ever given or received love, who has ever feared its disappearance in the face of death. The need to understand love's eternal destiny is universal, woven into the fabric of our souls. Love, after all, is the force that binds us not just to one another, but to God Himself. It is the language of the heart and the essence of our being. And yet, in the moments when life fades, it can feel as though love is the one thing most at risk of being lost. I had to know if that was true. I had to know if the love that had shaped my relationships, healed my wounds, and given me hope would somehow survive the final breath. This question led me to reflect deeply on the nature of love as I knew it, unconditional, selfless, and eternal in its potential. But could that potential be realized beyond the limitations of time and space? Was there a dimension where love could continue to exist, unbound by physical realities? These thoughts stirred in me a sense of awe and anticipation, as if I were standing on the edge of a revelation that could forever change how I viewed life and death. In the days that followed, the question of love's fate after death became a lens through which I viewed every interaction, every memory, every prayer. I found myself searching scriptures, ancient texts, and the wisdom of those who had wrestled with similar questions. Yet, none of these sources offered the clarity I craved. The mystery remained, and with it, a deep longing for a divine answer. This longing was not just intellectual, it was profoundly emotional. Love is the heartbeat of human connection, and the idea that it could be severed or extinguished with death felt like a wound that refused to heal. I thought about the letters and messages I had received from people around the world, mothers mourning children, spouses burying partners, friends saying goodbye. Each message carried the same desperate hope that love does not end with death, that there is a continuation, a reunion, a promise fulfilled. Yet, despite this hope, fear often overshadowed it. Fear of loss, fear of emptiness, fear that the love we invest so deeply in others might one day be meaningless. I carried these fears with me, not as a burden, but as a sacred tension, a space waiting to be filled with truth. It was here, in this sacred tension, that I found myself compelled to seek God's answer with everything I had. And so, in that early morning stillness, with my heart open and my spirit yearning, I asked God the question that had become my prayer. What happens to love after we die? I knew that the answer would not only change my understanding but also provide comfort and hope to countless others who shared this same longing. That moment marked the beginning of a journey into a revelation so profound it would reshape my very understanding of love, life, and eternity. It was a revelation that would show me that love is not bound by the physical realm, nor is it diminished by death. Love, I was about to learn, transcends the boundaries of this life and continues as a radiant, living presence in the spiritual realm. A presence that connects souls across time and space in ways that defy human logic but fulfill the deepest longings of the heart. This revelation was not just a theological concept or an abstract idea. It was a living truth, a divine reality that would be revealed to me in ways that challenged everything I thought I knew. And it was a truth that I would be called to share not just as a storyteller, but as a witness to the eternal nature of love itself. As I awaited this unfolding revelation, I felt a peace settle over me. A peace born not of answers received, but of the willingness to trust in the God who loves us beyond measure. I realized that this prayer was not an end, but a beginning that would lead me through a journey of discovery, healing, and transformation. The question remains with me still, but now it carries with it the promise of a divine answer, one that will reveal that love, in all its power and glory, never dies. Instead, it continues on, shining brightly in the eternal light of God's presence. And it is this promise that I now carry in my heart, ready to share with all who long to know what happens to love after we die. The days following that early morning prayer were marked by a strange mixture of turmoil and anticipation. I found myself caught in a whirlwind of emotions, hope battling with doubt, longing entwined with fear. The question I had asked God, what happens to love after we die, was no longer a distant curiosity. It had become an urgent need for truth. Yet, as I sought clarity, I encountered something unexpected. The raw and aching vulnerability of those around me who wrestled with the very same fear. Messages began to pour in from friends, acquaintances, and even strangers, each one a testament to the universal human struggle with love's fate. One letter in particular pierced my heart. It came from a mother who had recently held her teenage son in his final moments. She wrote with trembling words about the pain of losing him and the desperate hope that the love they shared would not vanish into nothingness. Her fear was palpable. Did her words of comfort reach him? Did her love survive the separation of death? Her letter was not just a cry for reassurance, it was a mirror reflecting the deep, unspoken fears that many carry silently. Reading her letter, I felt an overwhelming urge to find answers not just for myself, but for every soul burdened by this invisible weight. The emotional turmoil was compounded by my own uncertainty. Despite my faith, despite my years of storytelling rooted in divine truths, I was confronted with a profound vulnerability. How do you comfort someone when you yourself are unsure? How do you speak of eternal love when the reality of death feels so absolute? This internal conflict intensified each day. I recall vividly a moment during filming when I was tasked with comforting a character gripped by the terror of death. The scene demanded authenticity, yet I felt like I was reading from a script rather than speaking from a place of true understanding. The words I spoke lacked the depth that comes only from experience or revelation. It was a humbling moment, one that laid bare the gap between my desire to convey hope and the uncertainty that dwelled within me. Driven by this inner turmoil, I found myself returning again and again to prayer, this time with a fierce urgency. The simple morning plea had transformed into a desperate conversation with God, a heart laid bare in search of revelation. I remember one night, after a particularly exhausting day filled with scenes of grief and loss, when sleep eluded me entirely. The weight of unanswered questions pressed down so heavily that I stepped outside onto my deck, seeking refuge in the cool night air. Under the vast expanse of stars, I prayed not with polished words, but with a raw honesty that can only come from the depths of human need. God, I whispered, I am lost in this darkness. I see so much fear, so much pain. Please show me the truth about love beyond death. Help me understand so I can help others. In that moment, the silence that followed was profound. It was as if the universe held its breath, waiting for an answer. Then, in that stillness, something shifted. I sensed a presence, gentle yet undeniable, surrounding me like a warm embrace. It was not just a feeling, but a reality that transcended human perception. I knew, without doubt, that I was standing on the threshold of a divine encounter. The fear and confusion that had clouded my heart began to lift, replaced by a quiet anticipation. This encounter was unlike anything I had experienced before. It was not a loud proclamation or a dramatic vision, but a tender unfolding of truth. God began to reveal, piece by piece, insight into the mystery I had so desperately sought to understand. The revelation was not simply about what happens to love after death. It was about the very nature of love itself, its timelessness, its unbreakable connection, and its eternal purpose. As God spoke to my heart, I realized that the turmoil I had experienced was part of a greater process, a journey from fear to faith, from uncertainty to understanding. The emotional chaos was not a sign of failure, but an invitation to deeper trust. And in this sacred space, I was given a glimpse of a reality where love does not fade or die, but transforms and endures beyond the physical realm. This revelation began with the understanding that love is not confined by the boundaries of time or space. It is not a fragile thread that snaps with death, but a radiant light that continues to shine, connecting souls across the divide. I saw, in my mind's eye, love as a living presence, vibrant, growing, and uniting even those separated by death. This was not just a comforting thought. It was a divine truth that redefined how I viewed every relationship, every loss, every hope. The experience also revealed why love's continuation matters so deeply. Love, I was shown, serves a divine purpose that extends beyond our earthly existence. It weaves souls into an eternal community of compassion, healing, and unity. Every act of love, no matter how small, contributes to this everlasting tapestry. This understanding brought me profound peace, knowing that love given in this life is never wasted or forgotten, but becomes part of a greater, eternal story. Yet, even as this revelation unfolded, I knew that many would still wrestle with doubt and fear. The reality of death is stark and often painful. The uncertainty that surrounds it can feel overwhelming. But God's truth, as I was learning, is that love's power surpasses these fears. It is the anchor that holds us steady, the light that guides us through the darkest nights. In the days after this encounter, I found myself transformed not only in my understanding but in my heart. I was no longer burdened by the fear that love might end with death. Instead, I carried a new hope, a living assurance that love transcends the grave. This hope became a wellspring of comfort, not just for me, but for those I was called to serve. I began to share this truth in my work, in conversations, and in prayers. I witnessed how it brought solace to grieving hearts, turning sorrow into a quiet anticipation of reunion and restoration. The messages I received shifted as well from fear and uncertainty to gratitude and peace. It was as if a veil had been lifted, revealing a glimpse of the eternal love that binds us all. Still, I knew this was only the beginning. The full revelation of love's eternal nature was unfolding, and I was being invited to walk deeper into its mystery. The question I had asked God was not merely answered. It had opened a door to a journey of discovery that would continue to reveal the profound and beautiful truth of love beyond death. And so, with a heart both humbled and hopeful, I prepared to listen more closely, to receive more fully, and to share more openly the divine truths that were being revealed. Because in the midst of life's greatest uncertainties, one thing was becoming clear. Love does not end. It lives on, radiant and unbroken, forevermore. What I experienced next was beyond anything I could have anticipated. In the quiet moments after that night of prayer, when the divine presence had settled around me like a gentle embrace, a revelation began to unfold, a truth about love that shattered every fear I had ever held. God showed me, with an undeniable clarity, that love does not perish when we die. It does not dissolve into nothingness or fade away like a distant echo. Instead, love transcends the physical realm and becomes a radiant, living presence in the spiritual dimension. I saw love as a light, no, more than that, a brilliant flame that continues to glow long after the body has ceased to function. This light was not static or dim. It grew and pulsed, connecting souls across time and space. It was as if every act of love ever given or received was woven into this luminous web, creating an eternal network of connection and life. The realization washed over me with such intensity that I could scarcely breathe. Love is eternal, not because of human memory or sentiment, but because it is rooted in the very nature of God Himself. In that moment, I understood why love is the force that binds us, not just here in this world, but beyond it. It is the essence of our souls and the reflection of God's own heart. The love we give and receive is never lost. It becomes a living, breathing reality that transcends death's finality. This light of love continues to shine, carrying with it the warmth, joy, and grace of every relationship, every kindness, every sacrifice made in love's name. I could see the faces of those who had passed on, not as distant memories, but as vibrant spirits enveloped in this radiant love. Their presence was not shadowy or fading, but alive and luminous, connected to the love they had given and received. It was as if their souls were cradled in an eternal embrace, bathed in the purest expression of divine love. This was not a vague hope or a comforting metaphor, it was a living truth that resonated deep within me. What struck me most profoundly was how this love, this radiant presence, is not limited to those who have died. It is the very fabric that connects all souls, those living and those who have passed, forming a continuum of love that neither time nor death can sever. I saw how this connection transcends our earthly understanding, weaving a tapestry of eternal relationships that endure beyond the veil. This revelation dissolved the fear that love is lost at death. The anxiety that haunts so many that the bonds we forge here might be severed was replaced by an overwhelming peace. I realized that every moment of love shared in this life contributes to a light that shines forever, a light that God Himself sustains. It is the very heart of heaven, the eternal song of God's presence. As this truth settled into my soul, I felt a profound transformation. The fear and uncertainty that had clouded my heart began to dissipate, replaced by a deep assurance. Love, I was shown, is not a fleeting emotion or a fragile memory. It is a powerful, living force that continues to exist in the spiritual realm, vibrant and unending. This love carries with it the essence of God's nature, unconditional, eternal, and infinitely expansive. In that revelation, I also understood that this love is not passive. It is active, dynamic, and alive. It moves, it grows, it reaches out to connect and heal. It is the very energy that binds the universe, the force that sustains creation itself. The love we share in this life is a reflection of this divine energy, a spark of the eternal flame. I saw how every act of love, every hug, every word of kindness, every sacrifice, every moment of forgiveness adds to this radiant light. None of it is wasted, none of it is forgotten. Instead, each expression of love becomes part of an eternal mosaic, a masterpiece of divine connection that spans beyond our earthly existence. This understanding brought a new dimension to my view of relationships. I realized that the love we express now is not just for this life, but for eternity. It is the legacy we leave behind, the truth that outlasts every circumstance and every sorrow. This love is the bridge that connects our mortal journey to the eternal home God has prepared for us. It was a revelation that reshaped how I see grief and loss. The pain of separation is real, but it does not signify the end of love. Rather, it marks a transition, a passage from one form of love to another, from earthly presence to eternal connection. Love continues to glow, even when the physical form is gone. I was shown that this radiant love acts as a beacon, guiding souls and illuminating the path between this world and the next. It carries the memories, the joys, the sorrows, all held tenderly in the arms of God's infinite compassion. This light of love welcomes souls into a realm where fear and loneliness have no place, where love is fully realized and endlessly celebrated. In the days following this revelation, I found myself reflecting on the countless stories people have shared with me, stories of love lost and found, of hearts broken and healed. I recognized that beneath every tear lies this eternal truth. Love transcends death. It remains, it grows, it connects. It is the promise that no goodbye is final, no love is ever truly gone. This truth began to transform how I approach life and death. It infused every conversation, every scene I portrayed, and every prayer I offered with a newfound depth. I no longer feared the silence of death because I knew that love's light continues to burn brightly on the other side. It was a revelation that gave me courage to speak with authenticity and hope, to offer comfort rooted in the reality of love's eternal nature. I also realized that this light of love is accessible to all. It is not reserved for the few or the holy, but is the birthright of every soul. Each of us carries this divine spark within an eternal flame that connects us to God and to one another. This connection is the essence of life itself, the thread that weaves through all existence. As I embraced this revelation, I felt a stirring within me, a call to share this truth boldly and compassionately. So many are burdened by fear and uncertainty about what happens after death, about the fate of the love they hold dear. This message, I knew, could heal wounds, restore hope, and bring peace to countless hearts. In the quiet of my soul, I asked God to help me continue to receive and share this revelation, to be a vessel of love's eternal promise. I prayed that those who hear these words would be comforted, encouraged, and transformed by the truth that love is not lost but lives on, radiant, powerful, and unending. This revelation was more than an answer to my question. It was a doorway into a new understanding of God's heart and the eternal nature of love. It was a glimpse of the divine reality where love shines forever, connecting all souls in a tapestry of light and life. And so, as I continue this journey, I carry with me the vision of love as an eternal flame, one that no darkness can extinguish, one that binds us all in the infinite embrace of God's unending love. As the revelation about love's eternal light deepened within me, God began to reveal another profound truth, one that expanded my understanding beyond love's endurance to its divine purpose. I was shown that love's continuation after death is not merely a comforting idea, but a vital part of God's grand design, a design that knits souls together in an eternal community of compassion, unity, and healing. I saw before me a vast tapestry, woven from countless threads of love, each thread representing a relationship, a sacrifice, a moment of grace shared between souls. This tapestry was alive, shimmering with colors and light that transcended earthly description. Every act of love, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, contributed to this eternal masterpiece. It was a living network, connecting souls across time and space, binding the living and the departed in an unbreakable bond. What struck me most deeply was the realization that this eternal community of love serves a divine purpose far beyond human understanding. Each expression of love on earth, whether a comforting embrace, a whispered prayer, or a selfless act, becomes part of a greater work of healing and restoration. This work spans eternity, reaching into hearts and lives in ways we cannot see but can trust are real. God showed me that love is the very fabric of eternal life. It is the force that holds creation together, the energy that sustains the universe. Through love, souls are knitted into a community where compassion reigns, where every wound is tenderly healed, and where peace flows like a river without end. This community is not distant or abstract. It is vibrant and dynamic, filled with relationships that transcend physical separation. I witnessed how souls who had once loved deeply on earth continue to love in eternity, their bonds growing stronger rather than fading. The pain of separation felt in this world is softened by the knowledge that these connections persist, evolving into a deeper, more profound unity. Love, I was shown, is the glue that heals the fractures caused by death, creating a new reality where joy and sorrow intermingle in perfect harmony. This eternal purpose of love also revealed to me the interconnectedness of all souls. I saw how every act of love contributes to a collective healing and growth, not only for individuals but for the entire community of souls. Each gesture of kindness, forgiveness, and compassion sends ripples through this eternal network, touching countless others in ways we cannot fathom. It is a legacy of grace that transcends time and space. In this vision, I understood that the love we share on earth is not isolated or temporary. It is part of an ongoing story of redemption and restoration, a divine narrative that includes every soul and every act of love. This truth brought a profound sense of purpose to the moments of connection we often take for granted. Simple acts of love become sacred threads woven into the eternal fabric of God's kingdom. I was also shown that this eternal community of love is a place of belonging. No soul is ever truly alone. Instead, each is embraced by an everlasting fellowship where love is abundant and unconditional. The fears of isolation and abandonment that haunt so many hearts are rendered powerless in the face of this divine reality. Here, love is the foundation, the cornerstone, and the crown of eternal life. As this revelation settled in my heart, I could not help but reflect on the pain and division so prevalent in our world. The brokenness we see around us is real and painful, yet I was shown that it is not the final word. Love's eternal purpose is to heal these wounds, to mend the brokenhearted, and to restore unity among all souls. This restoration is not a distant hope, but an active, ongoing reality in the spiritual realm. With this understanding, I found a new perspective on suffering and loss. Even in the darkest moments, love's eternal purpose is at work, bringing healing and growth, knitting souls together, and preparing us for a future filled with peace and joy. It reframed grief not as an end, but as a passage into a deeper experience of love's power and presence. I also realized that this eternal purpose calls us to participate in love's work now. The love we give in this life matters infinitely. It contributes to the healing of the world and the building of the eternal community. Our actions, words, and prayers are threads in this divine tapestry, and we are invited to weave them with intention and grace. This revelation transformed how I viewed my own relationships and the way I live each day. I began to see every moment as an opportunity to contribute to the eternal community of love, to be an instrument of God's healing and unity. It infused my life with a sense of sacred responsibility and joyful purpose. I also recognized that this eternal community is a place where justice and mercy coexist. Love's purpose is not only to comfort but to transform, to bring wholeness to what is broken and to reconcile what is divided. It is a vision of heaven not as a distant realm but as a living reality unfolding before us, fueled by the power of love. As I continued to meditate on this revelation, I felt a growing urgency to share this truth with others. So many are weighed down by loneliness, pain, and fear. The knowledge that love's eternal purpose is to unite and heal offers profound hope. It invites us to trust that the connections we cherish are not lost but are part of a grand divine work that spans eternity. I began to see how this truth could bring comfort to those grieving, strength to those feeling isolated, and courage to those struggling with broken relationships. It is a message of hope that transcends circumstances and speaks to the heart of every soul longing for belonging and peace. In the quiet moments of reflection, I prayed that God would help me to embody this truth, to live out love's eternal purpose in my own life, and to be a beacon of hope for others. I asked for the wisdom and grace to weave my own thread into the eternal tapestry with faithfulness and joy. This revelation has deepened my understanding of what it means to love and to be loved. It is not merely a fleeting feeling but an eternal reality that shapes the very fabric of existence. Love's purpose is to create an everlasting community where every soul is known, cherished, and healed. As I carry this truth forward, I am humbled and inspired. The love we share on earth is part of an eternal story, one that continues beyond the grave, knitting us together in a divine fellowship that knows no end. This knowledge transforms how I live, how I grieve, and how I hope. And so, with a heart full of gratitude and a spirit eager to share, I step into each day, knowing that love's eternal purpose is at work, not only in eternity, but here and now, inviting us all to be part of God's unfolding masterpiece of compassion and unity. What unfolded next in this divine revelation was a truth so profound it reshaped my very understanding of joy and the soul's readiness for eternity. God revealed to me that love is not only eternal and purposeful, but also a gateway, a passage that prepares souls for the fullness of joy that awaits beyond this life. This preparation is transformative, expanding the soul's capacity to receive and give love without limitation. I saw, vividly, how love acts like a refining fire, purifying the heart and clearing away the shadows of pain, regret, and fear. It removes the burdens that weigh down the soul, making room for a joy so deep and expansive that it surpasses anything we can imagine in this earthly life. This joy is not fleeting happiness, but an eternal state of worship, fulfillment, and union with the divine. In this revelation, I witnessed souls transitioning from the confines of earthly limitations to a realm where love flows freely and abundantly. The barriers of time, space, and brokenness dissolve, and what remains is the pure essence of love, unencumbered, radiant, and overflowing. I saw how this preparation readies souls to dwell forever in the fullness of God's love, a love that is infinite and never-ending. This process of preparation through love is gentle yet profound. It does not rush or force the soul, but invites it into a deeper awakening. Souls come to understand that all the love they have known and given is but a glimpse of the greater love that awaits them. They are drawn into a new dimension of existence where love is the very air they breathe, the light that surrounds them, and the song that fills their being. I was shown how this expansion of love's capacity is essential for the joy of eternity. Without it, the soul could not fully embrace the boundless love of God nor the profound relationships that characterize eternal life. This preparation is a divine gift, a sacred process that ensures each soul enters eternity not only with peace but with an eager, joyful heart. The revelation brought clarity to the mysteries of grief and loss. I saw that the sorrow we experience in this life is not the end, but a step in the soul's journey toward this greater joy. The pain and longing serve as a refining fire, shaping us, teaching us, and ultimately preparing us for the eternal celebration of love in its purest form. I also understood how this preparation connects deeply with the way we live now. Every act of love, every moment of forgiveness, every choice to extend grace contributes to the soul's readiness. It is as if the love we cultivate here on earth is training our hearts to receive the fullness of God's love in the life to come. This truth transformed my view of suffering and hardship. Rather than seeing them as meaningless trials, I began to perceive them as part of a divine process, moments that, though painful, contribute to the soul's growth and capacity to experience eternal joy. It was a revelation that offered hope amid despair and light amid darkness. I saw how this preparation through love is not isolated but communal. Souls are not prepared in solitude, but within the context of relationship both with God and with one another. The joy of eternity is deeply relational, and love's expansion equips us to enter into that joyful fellowship fully. This understanding brought a new depth to my prayers and reflections. I found myself praying not only for peace for those who grieve, but for an awakening of the soul's capacity to receive love, to be ready for the joy that God promises. It became a prayer for transformation, for a heart that is open and eager to embrace the fullness of divine love. I also realized how this revelation could comfort those facing death or mourning the loss of loved ones. It offers a vision of hope, a picture of a soul being lovingly prepared for a joy that transcends pain and loss. This hope is not abstract or distant. It is a present reality unfolding in the spiritual realm, accessible through faith and trust. As I pondered this truth, I felt a stirring within me, a call to live with a greater awareness of love's power to prepare and transform. It challenged me to cultivate love more intentionally, to embrace forgiveness and grace, and to nurture relationships with the knowledge that they are shaping my soul for eternity. This revelation also deepened my understanding of worship. I saw worship not merely as a ritual, but as the natural response of a soul expanded and filled with love. Eternal joy is, at its core, an unending act of worship, a celebration of the divine love that flows endlessly through all creation. In the days that followed, I found myself more mindful of the ways love prepares us for the life to come. Moments of kindness, acts of service, and gestures of compassion took on new significance. They became more than good deeds. They became steps on the path to eternal joy. I also saw how this expanded capacity for love and joy is the very heartbeat of heaven. It is the environment into which souls are welcomed, a place where love is fully realized, and joy is the eternal atmosphere. This vision transformed my fears about death into a hopeful anticipation of the beauty that awaits. Yet, I also understood that this preparation is ongoing. It begins in this life and continues beyond as souls grow deeper into love and joy. It is a journey without end, an eternal unfolding of the soul's capacity to embrace the infinite. This truth invites all of us to participate consciously in this preparation. It calls us to live with love as our guide, to forgive, to serve, and to open our hearts to the transforming power of God's love. In doing so, we are not only preparing ourselves, but also contributing to the joy of the eternal community. In the quiet of my heart, I thanked God for this revelation, the gift of understanding love's transformative power and its role in preparing us for eternal joy. I prayed for the courage to live in alignment with this truth, and to share it with those who hunger for hope. This insight renewed my vision of life and death, of love and joy, and of the soul's eternal journey. It reassured me that love is not only the bond that connects us, but also the path that leads us into the fullness of God's presence. And so, as I continue on this journey, I carry with me the promise that love prepares us for joy beyond imagining, a joy that is eternal, radiant, and overflowing. This promise is a beacon in the darkness, a source of hope for all who seek to understand what lies beyond the veil of death. The revelations about love's eternal nature, its divine purpose, and its power to prepare souls for joy began to reshape everything I thought I knew about life, death, and relationships. What once felt like abstract theological concepts now became living truths, etched deeply into my heart, truths that demanded a new way of living, loving, and comforting others. I found myself reflecting on how these understandings could be applied practically, not just in my own life, but in the lives of those struggling with grief, fear, and uncertainty. The message that love continues beyond death is powerful, but it requires more than belief. It calls for action, for a transformation in how we approach each moment and each relationship. One of the first things I realized was the profound comfort this truth can bring to those who grieve. When someone we love passes away, the pain is often compounded by fear that the love we shared is lost or meaningless now. But knowing that love transcends death, that it persists as a radiant living presence, can turn sorrow into hope. It offers a new lens through which to view loss not as an end, but as a transition into a deeper connection. I began to share this message with families, friends, and communities facing death and grief. I listened as they spoke of their fears and doubts, their longing for assurance. When I shared the revelation that love is eternal, that it forms an unbreakable bond connecting souls beyond this life, I saw eyes lighten and hearts begin to heal. This was not a distant theological idea. It was a living hope that brought peace in the midst of pain. But this transformation is not only for those who mourn, it is also for caregivers, friends, and all who journey alongside the dying. I learned that by embracing the truth of love's eternal nature, caregivers can offer a deeper kind of comfort, one rooted in the assurance that the love being given and received will continue beyond this life. It changes the way we hold each other in those final moments, infusing them with sacred meaning. This truth also challenges us to live differently. If love is eternal, then every act of love matters infinitely. It calls us to be intentional with our time, our words, and our care for others. It urges us to forgive, to reconcile, and to express love boldly, knowing that these acts are not fleeting but part of an everlasting tapestry. I began to see how this understanding could transform communities. When we embrace love's eternal nature, we become agents of hope and healing in a world often marked by fear and division. We are called to embody this truth by cultivating compassion, unity, and grace in our relationships. In this way, the revelation becomes a catalyst for social transformation, as love ripples outward in ever-widening circles. Practically, I encourage those I spoke with to create rituals and practices that honor the ongoing presence of love beyond death. This could be as simple as lighting a candle, sharing stories of the departed, or acts of service done in their memory. These tangible expressions become bridges connecting the present to eternity, helping us to live with the awareness that love's story continues. I also emphasize the importance of prayer not only for the souls who have passed but for ourselves, that our hearts may be opened and prepared to receive love's fullness. Prayer becomes a means of participating in the eternal community of love, a way to align ourselves with God's healing and unifying purpose. In my own life, I found that embracing this revelation brought peace amid the chaos of loss and uncertainty. It reshaped how I grieved and how I loved. Knowing that love is not confined by death allowed me to face mortality with courage and hope. It freed me from the fear that love might be lost, and instead filled me with a desire to live fully in love's eternal reality. This transformation also deepened my storytelling. When portraying characters grappling with death and loss, I could now draw from a place of authentic understanding and hope. My words became vessels of truth that could comfort and inspire, rooted in the revelation that love transcends all boundaries. I recognize that this process is ongoing. Understanding and living out love's eternal nature is not a one-time event but a daily journey. It requires surrender, faith, and a willingness to be vulnerable. But the rewards are immeasurable, a life filled with peace, purpose, and profound connection. I also came to see that this truth challenges the culture of fear surrounding death. Society often treats death as a final end, something to be avoided or denied. But embracing the eternal nature of love offers a different narrative, one of hope, continuity, and divine connection. It invites us to confront mortality with grace and confidence. In sharing these revelations, I was humbled by the responses. People long to hear that love does not die, that their bonds with those who have passed are not broken. This truth meets a deep human need, providing a foundation for healing and transformation. Moreover, I saw how this revelation calls us to live with greater awareness of the sacredness of every moment. When we know that love is eternal, every interaction becomes an opportunity to weave a thread into the eternal tapestry. This awareness fosters gratitude, compassion, and intentionality in how we relate to others. I encourage those I spoke with to cultivate this awareness through daily practices, acts of kindness, moments of reflection, intentional expressions of love. These practices become spiritual disciplines that prepare our hearts for the eternal joy to come. This journey also revealed to me the power of community in living out love's eternal nature. We are not meant to walk this path alone. The eternal community of love begins here and now, in our relationships, our churches, and our families. Together, we can support and uplift one another, embodying the truth that love connects us beyond time and space. As I continued to embrace this truth, I prayed for the strength to be a faithful witness to love's eternal promise. I asked God to help me speak words of hope and comfort to those in despair, to be a beacon of light in the darkness of grief and fear. This revelation has transformed my heart and my mission. It calls me to live with courage, to love with abandon, and to share this message of hope with all who long to know what happens to love after we die. And so, carrying these truths forward, I walk each day with a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that love is eternal, that it unites us in an everlasting community, and that it prepares us for the joy that awaits. This understanding is not just for me, but for all who seek peace and hope amid life's greatest uncertainties. Reflecting on everything I had been shown, I found my heart profoundly changed, not just by knowledge, but by the living presence of a truth that had been whispered into my soul. The question I had asked God, what happens to love after we die, was no longer a source of fear or confusion, but a wellspring of hope and peace. This divine answer had transformed not only me, but also those around me, rippling outward like waves of light in a darkened world. I remember sitting quietly one evening, the weight of grief and loss pressing on many I knew, and I offered a heartfelt prayer. I prayed for peace for every soul wrestling with the ache of separation, for assurance to those afraid that love might be lost, and for comfort to those longing to know that their love endures beyond death. It was a prayer not only for myself, but for every person who carries this question in their heart. This prayer was also a plea for courage, a courage to embrace the truth fully and to live it boldly. Because this revelation is not merely theological, it is deeply practical. It calls us to live differently, love more fully, and walk through life with a profound sense of hope. It invites us to face death and loss not with despair, but with the confidence that love's story is far from over. I urge anyone listening to hear this message with an open heart. The truth that love transcends death is a promise written into the fabric of creation. It is a divine reality that connects us all, weaving an eternal tapestry of relationships that death cannot unravel. To grasp this truth is to be freed from fear, to find comfort in sorrow, and to step boldly into the future with hope. This understanding should reshape how we live. It calls us to cherish our relationships, to forgive freely, and to love without reservation. It reminds us that every act of love, seen or unseen, carries eternal weight. It challenges us to be present, to be compassionate, and to hold each other with tenderness and grace. As you carry this truth in your heart, I encourage you to share it widely. There is a world aching for hope, a world fearful of death's finality. This message can be a balm to broken hearts, a light in the darkness, a pathway to peace. Let us become messengers of love's eternal promise, spreading hope to those who need it most. I also invite you to live in the reality of this truth daily. Let love guide your actions and words. Let it shape your relationships and your view of life and death. Allow yourself to be transformed by the assurance that love never ends, that it continues to grow, to heal, and to prepare us for the joy that awaits. This revelation is not a distant dream, but a present reality. Love is alive and radiant, connecting souls across the veil of death and welcoming us into the fullness of eternal life. It is the heart of heaven and the hope of every soul. As I close this reflection, I offer a prayer once more. May God grant peace to every heart burdened by loss. May the light of love's eternal nature shine brightly in every shadow. And may all who hear this message find courage to embrace the truth that love is not defeated by death, but is, instead, forever victorious. Remember this: death is not defeat. It is a graduation into the life we were always meant to experience. A life where love shines without end, where joy is complete.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending this time with us today. I truly hope that this message has strengthened your faith, brought peace to your heart, and reminded you of the endless love of Jesus Christ. Whatever you may be facing right now, please remember that you are never alone. Jesus is walking beside you through every joy, every struggle, and every uncertain moment. His grace is greater than your fears. His love is stronger than your pain, and His light can guide you through even the darkest times. Keep praying, keep trusting, and place your worries in His hands. Jesus knows your heart, hears every prayer, and will give you the strength you need to keep moving forward. If this message blessed you, please share it with someone who may need hope today and subscribe to join our community. May Jesus bless you, protect your family, and fill your life with faith, love, and peace. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. God bless you.
And where we are forever held in the embrace of divine love. This is the hope I carry, and it is the hope I offer to you.